going to kick things off with a very broad question, everyone. Very broad question, which is expectations and aims for esports in 2021. Obviously, 2020 was one of the most. It wasn't the greatest year in the grand scheme of things, but 2021, where we're optimism is rife now. People are getting very excited. Adam, I'll start with you, my friend. Expectations and aims for esports this year. Mm-hmm. What are you excited about? What are you hoping is going to happen in this incredible industry this year?
Yeah, I hope that we can stay afloat as a whole, because it's not been easy despite what some headlines may say. So fellow journalists like to peddle that like it's been amazing for gaming and esports across the board, but they maybe don't consider like events stuff and, you know, like all the supportive elements of the esports industry as a whole. So for me, to be honest with you, I expected last year a lot of consolidation and a lot of people ceasing operations, and I was glad to see that wasn't the case. I'm a bit skeptical as to why, because revenue is not great in esports as a whole anyway. So I assume a lot of people have received external investment right now. And I know I'm supposed to be optimistic, but my optimism comes from the fact that I think we've managed to get through a lot of the hardship now. So I'd just like to see companies building back up. I won't name any in particular, but I know it's just been tough, you know. So it'd just be nice to know that there's not been a lot of damage done as a whole, and not too many people losing their jobs, hopefully, and actually more jobs created again. So the people that were unfortunate can re-enter the industry or get back into it in a full capacity and do what they love to do. So I think I managed to turn around and not be too doom and gloom at the end there.
Yeah, no, it's good. I feel good about it. It's a good answer. I feel good.
There we go.
Good. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's spot on. I think, you know, the year has been, as you say, like there's a lot of things in the media about how, you know, gaming is just exploding. Everyone's you know, reaping the benefits, but there has been a lot of, you know, discrepancies in that. Not everyone has had that kind of that same kind of fortune and glory, really. Kirsty, from your point of view as well, you're working in the PR world. I mean, how has it been for you? And what you know, obviously 2020, 2021, more optimistic now. There's hopefully going to be, you know, more events coming up and more kind of things happening in esports. How has it been from a public relations standpoint?
I think in terms of our own agency, we were really lucky, but that's in turn because our clients were. They were also very lucky. I think the biggest fear was having, without live events, that sponsors would start pulling out, that they wouldn't have the same, that those brands wouldn't have the same visibility as they would as a physical event. But actually, as it turns out, they needed that visibility online. And from what we saw, you know, there's that story that's still ongoing about how, you know, how everyone basically how sports had to pivot and how, you know, broader entertainment brands had to pivot. Which is still something that is, I suppose, happening. But I'd say that I think overall we've been lucky. I think that's going to be maintained for this year, especially for the first half. I'm a little bit, I suppose, I think I'm going to come across as a bit more pessimistic than Adam. Like I think we're going to be stuck like this for another year potentially. As things get ironed out, and I don't think we're going to be seeing those tournaments coming back for a little while. But outside of physical events, I think we did quite well.
Brilliant. I think you're right. I think there is this hope that the likes of LAN's going to come back, and we're all going to be in arenas before we know it. But you know, I think what a lot of TOs in particular have found as well is that there are ways to create these tournaments now. They've had to adapt to be reactive to the situation, and there's no need to kind of. There's been some incredible kind of competitions online that we don't actually need to force these arena things to happen just yet. It'd be lovely to have that, but the fact that we can still kind of run these fantastic tournaments from homes around the world. It speaks volumes that it still can happen in a capacity, and that we don't need to force it until the time is right. From your standpoint, Victoria, Collegiate Esports, what are you forecasting for 2021?
So 2020 definitely showed a lot of colleges that esports is the thing to do, because everybody freaked out when they're like, no football games, no basketball games like we're used to, and nobody knew what to do. So that was a good thing. Me being also a little bit of a pessimist, that also led to a lot of institutions getting esports programs. My cat's going to make a 500 appearances today. She just crossed the corner of the screen. But the negative is that means that there are a lot of programs out there that aren't ready to launch, right? They aren't ready to support students. They aren't ready to do it the right way. And also, unfortunately, there's a lot of groups in the space that have had or have started to giving very bad education to these coaches, right? It's oh, here's this, pay me this much money, and I'll tell you what you need to know, and then they don't support them, and the school just spent all the budget they had raised. Like there's a lot of ripple effects from all of that. So I think 2021 is kind of trying to iron out some of that information, and I think it's also going to be a continuation of people kind of feasting on people that have very, very good intentions. They just want to help students be able to do something on campus, and people are just taking advantage of that. And unfortunately, I think that's going to continue. I hope it doesn't. I hope I'm wrong. But I think that's 2021 is going to be a pretty big year for a lot of misinformation, particularly in the collegiate space, and then probably in the professional and amateur scenes as well.
Yeah, hopefully, I know I'm the same as you. We're all kind of slightly pessimistic because of the year we've had, but I'm hoping the dark cloud shifts. I'm hoping we can get back to some kind of normality and feel kind of a lot better as well. I think the mobile space, Matt, we touched on a short while ago, there has really boomed in the last 12 months or so. What predictions for 2021 for yourself? Feeling more optimistic, perhaps?
Well, let me preface this by saying I definitely agree with everybody else on this panel here. I mean, 2020 was just such a rough year for so many different reasons. I can say from a mobile perspective, I do think this industry was a bit more shielded perhaps than other platforms were, just because of, like you mentioned, Adam, such a boost that mobile gaming as a category got because everybody was stuck at home, right? So a lot of people across the world turned to gaming as that escape, and they used the devices that they already know and love, which is their mobile phone. Everybody's got one. So the transitions that did happen, however, are obviously going away from LANs, as Kirsty mentioned, and trying to find these new ways to, survive, or just, there were these huge marketing budgets that occurred all across the industry. Mobile gaming especially is one that started to focus a little bit more on content marketing, so working with content creators or these competitive events, but ones that include celebrities or influencers within the game. And we helped a lot of publishers make that adjustment. So I definitely expect to see a continuation of that. I don't think we're going to get back to normal, anytime soon, really, unfortunately, in 2021. But the mobile gaming industry as a whole has really been resilient, which has been excellent for everybody involved. I will say, the one stakeholder perhaps that was hurt the worst, unfortunately, were the mobile sports players, just because they didn't have as many competitive opportunities. But we're starting to see that turn around a little bit more as we head into 2021 as well.
Yeah, I do have a question for MobileMatt, actually, just based quickly about if we're doing 2021.
Yeah, jump in.
I've got a question you've never been asked before, Mr. MobileMatt. And is this the year mobile esports finally takes off? I know no one's ever asked that before. Is this 2021 the year?
Oh man, we're just jumping right into it. This is the banger question here. I get asked this a lot, as you can imagine. But so let me say, first of all, depending on where you live in the world, you may not even be thinking about that, right? Because mobile gaming is the primary platform in so many regions around the world, right? It's the primary platform in South America, in Southeast Asia, in China, and India. So Africa even is a mobile-first continent. So it's really just those of us in the North American and European regions that ask this question. And what I can say, and again, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. Every single region where mobile esports was successful became successful at the very start for different reasons. In China, it was because of social integrations with WeChat. And that's what really, created that boost. It was a lot like, if you recall, Facebook gaming back in the Farmville days, right? Where everybody was connected on the social media platform and we're sending each other invites and requests to play and stuff like that. If you look at India, it was because of a really rapid rollout of network coverage across the country. And everybody at that time had a mobile device with them. So that's what led to the gaming boost. And I think, it's impossible to predict how it's going to take over. But what I can say is if you look at the numbers, there's already convincing evidence that mobile gaming is the primary platform of choice for so many people in North America and Europe that I think it's just a matter of time before that transitions to the competitive side as well.
I mean, even the numbers, the likes of India and such, and countries in that region, the numbers are just unbelievable. The huge player base for the games, and they can have a lot of mobile games take preference over other gaming platforms, which is incredible, really. So, great question though, Adam. Originality, I love that.
I should be a journalist or something, right?
You should be. You should be. Before we move on to tournaments as a kind of like a subheading there, I haven't asked Ryan your feelings as well. Obviously, lockdown, people at home over the last 12 months, and we're moving kind of into 2021, and hopefully there'll be a change soon. But from a community standpoint, how is it? What are you looking to do this year in 2021 to help educate more moving forward?
Yeah, so I would say like my answer is slightly different than everyone else's on the call, because especially when you look at like the collegiate scene of esports and gaming, within the Black community at HBCUs, esports never existed. Literally, even at looking back at this time last year, the only program in North America that had an esports team was Morehouse College, based in Atlanta, Georgia. So for us, what 2020 was, it was actually the time that we could use to actually educate these institutions on why they needed to be investing and be thinking about esports and gaming as a sport for their students to participate in. So just like you said, like basketball and football were canceled, and sports is one of the main revenue drivers at many institutions, but definitely within the HBCU community. So without them having sports, it was actually like a perfect time for us to come in and introduce the ecosystem, because what we found, we spent a lot of time working with the International Game Developers Association, and a lot of the data show that African-American millennials over-index when it came to playing video games on a weekly basis, but it's probably the smallest percentage when you're actually talking about the esports workforce. So what we have been doing all of 2020 is actually educating these institutions on the scholarship opportunities, the internship, and the overall career pathways. So going back to last January, one HBCU in the country had an esports program, and now we've actually helped create and facilitate 25 different programs throughout North America, varying from the East Coast down to the South, as far out as Texas. So now for us, right, it actually gave us a forum to create the HBCU Esports League, because I would argue that in a normal society where traditional sports was happening, esports is brand new, we probably wouldn't have made the amount of traction that we have made given the circumstances. So for us now, having a league, we actually have a broadcast tonight from 7 to 10. You guys should check it out on our community channel. Now actually having a league moving forward, we're going to be able to create regional and local events from what we've created in the virtual space. So it was almost as if it was the opposite, but it's been phenomenal. And even from a collegiate league standpoint, from the level of support that we're gaining from Twitch, our broadcasts, the first two broadcasts we did brought in about 2.1 million viewers, which was like significant for us because, one, these students have never competed competitively and organized in gaming before, but they play video games all the time. So this has been a time for us to showcase the talent that everyone's talking about. Let's diversify the industry. It took a 2020 year to bring that talent to the light, to now reintroduce them to the space. So we're super excited because, we have made partnerships with like 100 Thieves, with Evil Geniuses, where like literally EG is going to be partnering with our HBCUs to ramp up and close the knowledge gap for PC gaming, for like Valorant and League. We work with like 7 of the 12 or 13 CDL teams where like they're literally mentoring my players in COD to show them like competitive strategies. And I would just strongly argue that if 2020 didn't happen how it did, at least in that ecosystem, this development wouldn't be taking place. So we're very hopeful that now, because of this, is actually going to bring forth an entire different demographic that is not used to being seen in the space and bringing it forth. That's really
exciting. It's huge. Incredibly exciting. And thank you for the optimism. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. See, I knew it was there somewhere, but it's incredible that you've actually seen 2020 has been a huge year for growth for the community, which is amazing. And so many people now have access to esports that they might not necessarily have had done before that, which is fantastic. So really exciting to hear. That's great. Mike, I haven't come to you for a while. I'll jump in with you, sir. Fabulous hair, by the way, Mike. Fabulous.
Don't tee me up with that.
I'm just saying. We mentioned Adam earlier on. I've got to give you credit where it's due, my friend.
I was waiting on Adam coming in on that one.
we actually.